Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So in this game, we will be playing none other than NiceChessD. Let's get to it. D4, knight f6, c4, g6. So this is what we call the Grunfeld defense, named after a man named Grunfeld. Might have been Edward Grunfeld. I forgot his first name, but Grunfeld. Knight c3, d5. So this is the Grunfeld defense, and if bishop g7 was played and e4 was played, this is the king's Indian defense. So very different things, but after g6, knight c3, d5. So the goal of black here is to really strike at the center. It could involve, so here's the main line. So c takes, knight takes, e4, knight takes, b takes, bishop g7, knight f3, and the move c5. So what black is going to do is pile this knight on c6, castle, maybe play bishop to g4, and put pressure on this diagonal pawn structure because the rook is the main target, and at the same time, having this diagonal is very powerful. So that is the goal of the Grunfeld. But in the game, I sort of tested our friend a little bit. I played the move bishop to d2. And this is a somewhat common move, but also not very common at the same time. After bishop g7, I played the move e4, and after knight takes c3, bishop takes c3. And after castles, I played the move h4. So this is a very surprising move. I just did it on the spot, and I said, you know what? Let's test our friend NiceChessD here. h5 was played, bishop to e2. I was just very, very adventurous in this game. I said, let's go with g4, right? But after c5, I noticed that, if I played g4 here, black is going to take on d4. Black is going to have plenty of play in the center, so I have to avoid that. I played d5, bishop takes, b takes, queen to a5, and after queen to d2, e6, and here I can think about the move d6 here. But at the same time, I might be able to think about bishop takes h5. That is a move that I just came up with right now, because after, let's take a look at it. Bishop takes h5, g takes h5, queen to g5, king to h8, queen to h6, king to g8, and now the rook lift to h3, maneuvering it to g3 and taking advantage of this disconnection right here. So that is a move I could have done. But another move, a more straightforward looking move, is the move d6, avoiding this pawn. The one thing about d6 is I just didn't really know if my pawn structure would hold up, right? There's knight c6, there's e5 here. So for example, if black played e5 here, how would I protect this pawn, right? Rook d8 is coming, maybe queen to b6 is coming, and this sort of, where's the protection of the pawn has to come into question. But at the same time, white has rook d1, knight f3, and these sort of options to try to protect the pawn. So d6 could have been considered, but I remember I didn't take too much thought on this move. And apparently the computer says g4 is another move that can be considered, and that looks really interesting. It just doesn't feel human because it's so crazy, So I played c4, nothing big, inviting and traded queens and trying to solidify my center. Queen takes, pawn takes, and now b5. I found this very, very interesting. I thought this was a very good move from NiceChessD, recognizing that black needs to break down the center and try to get one of these center pawns. So I played takes b5, e takes, and now rook to d8. Now the thing about rook to d8 here is that I just realized I can play the move king to c3. And after king to c3, bishop to b7, I can play bishop to f3, right? But there might be a6. So there might also be knight to d7 and knight to b6. So I don't know if I made the best decision here. I kind of felt like, again, c takes d5 may not, no, c takes b5, excuse me, may have not been the best, but it was just something to think about. So another move that black could have played here is rerouting this knight to b6 and ganging up on the pawn this way. So that could have been an option. But I instead played bishop to c4. And this was the moment for black to recognize, okay, well, after bishop to b7, king to c3, and white's going to play rook to d1. But a clever way to do it is play the move a6. And this is the way because, to be honest, after a4, you can take on b5, and you can't really take back with the a pawn because the rook is hanging, right? This knight is not developed yet. And the benefit is that after b6, there's knight to d7, and all of a sudden this pawn looks really bad without this a4, a5. So rook to b1, now rook to b8, and all of a sudden this pawn is gone, it's not looking great. So a6 would have been the brilliant move of the game, but bishop to e6 happened, and here is where my advantage started. Rook to d1. Now, here I allowed the move a6 again. Not intentionally, but I just didn't think a6 had that much power. I was wrong. I mean, after a6, I said a4, a takes b5, a takes b5. I was thinking, well, bishop to f5, and I thought it was okay here. I mean, my bishop controls this very important a2 square, and I thought I had things under control here. So that's why I said, you know what, I'm okay with a6. But in reality, a better way to carry out this was king to c3, because after bishop takes d5, now there's rook to d1, right? And by moving the king out to c3, I directly threaten the e6 bishop. So that is another way to do it. But in the game, it happened anyway. Bishop takes d5, king to c3. Very sneaky, but this threat came with a lot of mistakes, let's just say on my part. So what did we learn from this game? Well, the opening, I would say, was a mild success. Queen to a5, queen to d2, and after e6, I could have considered more options. I mean, I didn't quite consider bishop takes h5. I could have also considered g4. I could have also considered d6. But I kind of felt like, my thinking was a bit rushed due to the nature of the simul. Queen takes d2. And I felt like b5 was a really good move. Now, maybe I should have played d takes e6 here to get that pawn on b5, because now I have this very weak looking pawn structure, and I was so thankful I did not get punished through knight d7, knight d7, knight b6, and bishop to b7, or I didn't get punished for the move for black getting to play a6. So I was very lucky in that aspect. And I could have also played king c3 to directly threaten this bishop, but I made a few mistakes here, and I can only say that NiceChessD just made the slightly bigger mistake. So it was well played to NiceChessD, but I got lucky. Simple as that. I mean, I didn't play my best chess. I didn't consider everything that I needed to. And so with that, I'll see you next time.